Hello, welcome back. Just got a tag for you to do. I'm just gonna hopefully do this quite quickly. This is the supermarket shopping tag, originally created by Jason at By Waste Bookland, and I've seen it on a bunch of other channels too. So here it goes. First one is list. Do you have a list when you're shopping, either in person or online? Basically, no. I know pretty much the books that I want in my. It's all up here. A lot of the books I get look very similar because they're like the old mystery style, so they like all look very similar. And I'm a big browser. Even online, I will browse. I'll go to like specific small publishers like Verso or House of Anansi, and I will sorry, the dog just from trying to eat my hat there. I will try to just browse online, basically, just whatever looks good at that time. And yeah, that's a big browser. I love to browse. Don't always know what I'm in for. I love the hunt, basically. It's part of the fun of book shopping, is you never know what you're gonna get, and you can often be surprised. Just take a chance on the book, and especially if it's a thrift store, you're paying 50 cents for it. I've read so many great books, but just not knowing anything about them, picking them up from a thrift store and reading them. Number 2 is Fruit and Veg, basically a book that's improved your body or mind. I mean, I love reading. It's all improves my body and mind. It's a great de-stressor. But I'm gonna go with a specific book. It's like My Life in Hard Times by James Thurber. It's just like little short stories, really, really funny. This book is seen better days, so I need to reinforce this, but it's one of the few books that I have kept from when I lived in the UK. And yeah, just they're super funny. It's like really silly comedy. Yeah, little anecdotes. They're just great to read, and it's hard to explain if you haven't read them, but I would very much recommend him. I think most of his books from the 20s and 30s, but yeah, great short story writer. What was the next one? Tin Goods, which is basically, or canned food, which is basically a bland genre. Although canned food is very essential. So, and it's not bland. I love canned food. So, I don't really agree with that, but anyway, bland genre for me would be economics, just like straight economic theory, and anything that looks like straight theory or numbers. I don't mind the politics of economics and economic policy and impact of economics on society and humans and the environment, but just straight theory and numbers, it's not really for me. It's quite, I find that quite dry. Meat Fish Counter, a book that's written just for you. So there was a great series written by Gideon Defoe back in the mid 2000s, and it stretched all the way into 2012, I believe, was the last book written. And it's the Pirates series. So it was started off with Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists, which was made into the Aardman film. Aardman really definitely took the title and made it family friendly. The books are not family friendly. There's quite a lot of adult humor, especially the start of the first one. Has a little bit of it's funny, but it's quite graphically violent. The imagery it conjures up. So they're definitely, and interestingly enough, when the Aardman movie came out, a lot of critics hadn't done their research and they thought they were kids' books, and so many. I read so many articles that incorrectly thought they were kids' books. But he wrote a whole, I think it was like five or six books, and they were all great. Some of them were better than others, but they were just absurdist humor and little running jokes, puns, just like wordplay. It was so good. And the whole premise was that the main pirate was just such an idiot, was completely an idiot, and he would get confused, and they would run into famous people. So I think the Scientist one, Isaac Newton, maybe involved in it, and then there was the Adventures of Communists, so that's basically like Karl Marx and people like that. and there was an Adventures with Whaling, which was essentially Moby Dick. What was that? Oh, and there was Romantics. The Romantics one was pretty good. That was the last one. So it had like Byron and people like that. Yeah, really good. If you haven't read them and you love all the serious adult humor, then yeah, go for it. Baked goods, which is like bread and stuff. It's just like something that's like a kind of staple, an author you can easily digest any time of the day. For me, that would be Attica. I mean, there's a lot, but Attica Locke. This is Heaven My Home, which is her latest. She writes crime novels, but they're super nuanced. She writes a lot about race and society, and her crimes often have, or the settings, usually the crime or just the detective or whoever's investigating the crime is obviously, it usually has like a racial tension. Often these ones are set in rural Texas on Highway 59. Her first one was, I think, set in Houston. But yeah, if you want to try her, definitely start with first debut novel, Dogwater Rising. It's a great debut novel for a start, and it just like really sets off her style and what she's all about. It's a great debut novel, and yeah. I would definitely recommend her any time of day, especially if you love people like Walter Mosley or Trista Himes. Definitely someone to check out. Or even some like Greg Ills, if you like him, for sure. It's kind of similar in that vein. I would say Attica Locke's a little bit of a better writer, and there's less of the comeuppance and bravado that Greg Ills has. Greg Ills is still a great writer though, but I would choose Attica Locke over him any day. Number 6, Chilled Section, a new cool author or book. Don't really read a lot of new stuff, mainly by thrift stores, and even when I buy from publishers, they're often kind of usually more backlist, and I'm a big fan of reprints, so I often buy a lot of classic or cult texts that have been reprinted. I like to support those because otherwise a lot of those books just get lost because they're not really important enough to be like stuck in the public domain, or even that they're not, even though they're like eligible for the public domain, they can become orphaned, and sometimes especially with like crime books, the covers are super collectible, and so then they become like hundreds of dollars, or like $50 to $100 to buy, and it's just like unreasonable if you just want to read a kind of probably crappy detective fiction. But new cool author, I'm gonna go with Tessa Wicker, Death in the Family. I'm enjoying it so far. It's a really great premise. It's basically a locked room thriller, but it's the room is more the island. It's actually set in Thousand Islands, which is what the cool part of it is that it's just down the road from me. I just live not too far from the Thousand Islands, and the bookstore that I bought it from is right up in the heart of the Thousand Islands. A lot of the tours on the Canadian side start there. So yeah, it's I would recommend this so far, and hopefully get to the point where it's just like I need to know what happened. I just got raced to the end and need to know what's happening. But so far I'm enjoying the premise, and it's not annoying me too much. I'm not always great with new thrillers for some reason. I like the way older thrillers are written. But I do like some new thriller authors, but generally gravitate towards the 30s to 50s. Sorry, a little bit of a cough today. Number 7, Frozen Section, a book that gave you shivers. Unlike Jason, which I think he gave this book as more of a funny book or something, or maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was another tag he did, but a book that gave me shivers was actually American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis. It's just so over the top. I know that it's not necessarily actually happening, that it could just be someone's imagination. But even if it's imagination, it's very chilling. There's some of the graphicness of it is incredible. I mean, I think I read it when I was about 17 or 18. So maybe even I was a little bit young for it. I have a very jaded worldview by then, but still the graphicness of it. I mean, it's probably one of the only books that I've almost thrown up reading. But I mean, I do think it's a great book still, and it's worth a read. But it is incredibly graphically violent, and the movie that was made, even if you like the movie is not the book. The movie is definitely, I think the movie kind of missed the point of the book a lot. I mean, you can still like it as like a serial killer movie, but it totally misses the whole point of the book, I think. It is a deep send up of the 80s and of kind of yuppie culture, but it's also very graphically violent too. Number 8, a book that made you, Beer, Wines and Spirits, a book that made you feel like an adult. For me, that was Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, just because it's a classic, just so, adults read classics. I read it when I was about 13 or 14. Essentially, I think it was that year that we still had to, do the kids in the UK still do SATs tests in year 9? That's basically when I read it. I was probably one of the few times in my life I was a little bit more ambitious, and I wanted to get a really high score in English. I had a really high grade, and I kind of asked my English teacher, what's the best thing to do to get like better English, and she just said read classics. So I went out and I bought some Dickens, and I bought some Thomas Hardy, and I bought Gustave Flaubert, and I think out of all of those, I think I only read Great Expectations, but I did really enjoy it. It took me quite a while. I've always been a very slow reader, but I did really enjoy it actually, and I think it's the only one to date. It's the only Dickens I've actually finished. I've started a lot of others, but yeah, it was very enjoyable, very gripping, very evocative, had some great scenes. But yeah, it definitely made me feel like an adult. Number 9, Sweets Candy, a treat read. It's detective fiction, crime fiction, spy thrillers, any book that kind of looks like this. Essentially, these little paperbacks, small paperbacks. This one is Dead Calm by Charles Williams, which is a fantastic read. And Pan's a great I'm a great fan of the Pan editions. I read a ton of these. I have if this was food, I'd have a really bad diet. I do read a ton of these. I tend to read these until I get kind of sick of them, and then I go back to reading non-fiction or some like general fiction, or even in some cases some like high scholarly literary fiction, and then I'll go back to these, and I'll get sick of these again, and then back to non-fiction or whatever. And that's basically how I read. But I always buy these whenever I see them, and they're great. This one's a bit more special to me, but they're great for just popping in my lunch bag and reading them at work, kind of like low stakes reading. You don't really have to remember too much what's going on with them a lot of times. You can just kind of read them pretty quickly. So yeah, that's my treat read. I treat a lot though. Number 10, Max Down, Tales of Magazines, Journals, regularly read. I don't read any anymore. I read a lot. Well, I read online stuff, I guess. So I kind of read things like I read online, like Mother Jones. I'll read USA Today because something's got the sports stuff, and I'll read a lot of like online sports articles and just politics stuff. But back in the day when I did subscribe, it was either DVD magazines. Can't remember any names of the ones I had. But also New Scientist, very, very good. I think it was bi-weekly, fortnightly. Science journal. and also Private Eye, which is a pretty good investigative journalist and satirical magazine in the UK. Still edited by Ian Hislop. Very, I mean, they've had their errors. They've certainly stupidly backed the anti-vaxxer movement in the UK, but at least at one point, when I think when the main scientist that was part of the anti-vaxxer said it was all totally wrong, then they finally issued an apology and a statement that they were completely incorrect and probably hurt a lot of people in the process, which was very good of them. But generally, they're pretty good at just exposing lots of corruption. I mean, not that it doesn't necessarily does any good, but because the corruption still goes on, people don't really seem to give too much about it. But at least I can find out about it, and I can try to convince people to give a shit. But yeah, oh sorry, I didn't mean to swear again. But I'm Scottish, so what can you do? I think that's basically it. Check out, tag people. I'm not gonna bother tagging anyone. If you see this and you want to do it. But otherwise, I think pretty much everyone's done it. Most of the people that I follow, that I like and stuff, have done it. But again, if you haven't done it, just do it. Not really gonna put any pressure on anyone right now. Yeah, and I hope you enjoyed this. 16 minutes, that's pretty good for me. So yeah, thoughts below if you want, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.